Hi, this is Caesar from Weber's Agency, and in this video I'm going to show you the configuration that I use to prepare and to run Screaming Frog on a website crawl. Screaming Frog is one of those essential tools that you need when doing a website audit of any sort. There are plenty of other crawlers out there like DeepCrawl, SiteBulb, and a bunch of others. Even tools like SEMrush have a crawler feature, but I find Screaming Frog to be the go-to crawler for most marketers, and I think it's because of its user and budget friendliness. So in this video, I'm going to just talk about the configurations that I use when I'm running a crawl specifically for the website quality audit, which is the foundational deliverable that we start all of our SEO campaigns with. So things you can do with Screaming Frog is you can find technical issues like things like JavaScript crawling and rendering problems, indexability status of pages, structured data errors, page speeds, things like that. You can do on-page SEO analysis. So, if maybe the page titles are missing or they're too short, they're too long, missing alt tags for images, missing H1s or H2s, all that you can use Screaming Frog to catch those type of errors. Also internal linking, broken links, so you can see exactly what pages of the site particular pages is getting links from. You can see the status code of links, so if you have a lot of redirects, if there's redirect hops, if there's 404 errors, broken pages on the site, all that will be discovered through using Screaming Frog. You can check for making sure that the tracking code for your marketing tools like Google Analytics, GTM, want to make sure that the pixel is on all of the pages, so you can use Screaming Frog to run that check. Categorize page types. This is specifically for the website quality audit. Part of what we do is categorize pages into the type of page that it is. So whether it's a product page or a blog post or a resource page. And as long as the page has some sort of identifiable element to it, then you can use Screaming Frog as you're crawling the page to look for that element. And that way it can help you in categorizing these pages. So it doesn't work 100% of the time. It's not perfect, but it's pretty useful. You can also create sitemaps from right within Screaming Frog, and it also has a cool visualization that you can use to get a visual representation of the website architecture. And then, of course, ultimately, what we end up doing is exporting the crawl into the website quality audit file in order to conduct the website quality audit. So the next thing from here is I'm just going to walk you through how I set up Screaming Frog and some of the things that I look for, and just give you any pointers that I can think of as I'm doing this. So I'll pick it up from the Screaming Frog interface. Okay, I'm going to run a crawl of the Blueprint training website. So the first thing I'll do is come over to the configurations. And here under Spider, you're going to be able to select the different settings that you want to use. If you want to use this as both a crawl for the purposes of the website quality audit, as well as identifying maybe some technical issues with JavaScript files or images, then you want to just leave everything saved here. For the most part, you don't really need to mess with the configurations out of the box, but if you want to speed up the crawl or you're not concerned with the different resource files, then you can obviously uncheck these. You can also select to crawl the pagination links as well. If the site has hreflang, you would want to crawl that. I know that the Blueprint it's only in one language, so there is no hreflang, so there's no need to select there. Then if you want to crawl XML sitemaps, you can do that as well. Typically, I don't do this simply because using the website quality audit template Part of that is that it brings in the XML sitemap, so I don't need to crawl it here. But if you did want to do this as a standalone crawl, or you needed to, just check for whatever reason what URLs are in the XML sitemap, then you can enter it here, or you can have it auto discovery. Means this here, if you don't check it and you just leave this one here, then it'll only check the robots.txt. So you would need to make sure that the XML sitemap URL is linked to from the robots.txt file. Otherwise, make sure that you enter it manually here. Since I'm not going to crawl the XML sitemap, I'm not going to select this. Next thing is extraction. You can leave all of this checked as it comes. For the structured data, what you need to find out is how structured data is being implemented on the site. The more common way these days is through JSON LD. But if you're not sure, you would just come over here to the website and just do a search here for type or at type. And here you can see the structured data that's being implemented, and it is through JSON LD. So I'm going to select that, and that's all you need to do. I also check, I do Google validation because really I'm only concerned that the structured data being used is validated by Google, not so much schema.org. So yeah, this is optional, but I usually select this Google validation. Really don't need to change anything here unless you have a really large site that you're crawling and you want to set any sort of crawl limits. For render, you can leave it as Ajax crawling scheme is fine. If you know for sure that you're dealing with a website that has a JavaScript framework or delivers its main content through JavaScript, then you would need to select JavaScript crawl. But unless you absolutely need to do it, I would advise that you don't, because it does slow down the crawl considerably. Advanced, there again is really nothing that you would need to change here, at least not that I do. And nothing here in preferences. So next thing under configuration would be the robots.txt. So what's cool about this is that you can actually add a robots.txt directives here if, for example, you are making any sort of recommendations, or if you want to see if you're blocking certain parameters or blocking certain sections of your website from being crawled. It's a good idea to first, before you actually make that change into your live robots.txt file, to run a crawl with those directives here, just to test it and make sure that you're not going to inadvertently block pages that you shouldn't be blocking. So this is just a good way of making sure that you're not messing things up by updating the robots.txt file. URL rewriting, I don't really use this that often, but you can, if you want to remove parameters, for example, if you have a filter in place in your analytics reports and you want it to match the crawl, then you could remove those parameters, and it just basically concatenates all of those pages into one. Same thing here, regex replace. You can lowercase discovered URLs. Same thing. If you have a filter in analytics in place that is making all of your URLs lowercase, then this might be a good option here to check. The next thing here is CDNs. We won't get into that. Include. So this configuration here allows you to crawl a certain section of a site only. So if you only wanted to crawl the blog, for example, then if I just wanted to crawl the blog for the Blueprint training, then I would just come here and say /blog. And then I want to make sure that I'm actually crawling the blog post, right? So then you would just do a .star and that's just regex for crawl anything that comes after it. And then you definitely would want to test it and make sure. So if you were to just come here, it's saying that the /blog is included in the crawl or included in the report. Then I can just write anything afterwards, and you can see that it will be. But if this were, let's say, product, then it would not be included. All right, so let me just make sure that I didn't save that. Yeah, I don't want to have that there. So exclude is basically the opposite of include. So if you want to exclude a certain subfolder of your website or parameters, then you can add those here. Next thing is speed, user agent, HTTP headers. Really, you're not really going to have to mess with this 95% of the times. If you do, it's a little bit more advanced, but it's rare that you're going to need to make any changes to like HTTP headers or anything like that. Custom search. So this is the functionality that I wanted to go over, where if you have a website that doesn't specify, like, let me see if we come over here to the blog, and if you just click into any one of these pages, you see that blog is not in the URL. So whenever you're then going in and categorizing these pages, it could be challenging. A small site like this is really not a big deal, but if you're working with a larger site that has, you know, thousands and thousands of pages, a good, you know, if you want to take the time to do a little bit of research into the different page templates, what you can do is start to identify certain unique elements about a particular type of page, which you can then look for in the crawl, and then it'll help you identify those pages. So as an example, I know that, you know, a blog post on the Blueprint training is going to have an author box here. So I can look for that element here, and it's right here. So author details. So I can copy this and just highlight, copy that, and then bring it over here. And if the page contains this, then I know that it's a blog post. Another thing you can do with this is, let's come back over to the page, is I know that we're using Google Tag Manager. So you can look for GTM start, because this is the part of the snippet that initiates GTM. So again, I'm going to copy this. Okay, and for this example, I just want to show you that if you had other type of pages that you wanted to do the same thing like I did here for the author, if you had other marketing pixels that were outside of GTM that were hard-coded, then you could also just add those here. Okay, that's pretty much it. If you have these APIs, you can connect it like Analytics, Search Console. Again, these are things that using the website quality audit template gets brought in via Supermetrics. So not really a reason to do that here as part of the crawl. And I have it on Spider. And for now, that's all that I'm going to do, or at least part of the configuration. So let's run the crawl, and then I'll pick it back up after the crawl is complete. All right, now that the crawl has completed, this is what the final crawl is going to look like. And if you use this table up here, there's a lot of data. So it's not very useful, not very practical to use this part of it here. I like to look at the URL detail section that's down here. But before that, over here on the right pane, these are all of the different technical items that the crawl looks for and gives you hints as to possible problems. So it'll tell you what are all of the internal elements, the external elements, response codes. If you have any sort of duplicate issues, underscores, uppercase, these are like URL problems. Not a big deal. For page titles, it'll give you information if you have any page titles with over 65 characters, meaning that the page title is probably too long and is getting truncated in the SERP. Although a better thing to look at is pixels. Anything over 600 pixels is usually going to get truncated. So all of that type of information here, H1, H2s. Down here, you can see all of the different resources. So there's a lot of images on this website. So images becomes a little bit more important than if you're dealing with a site that mostly has just HTML and not a whole lot of other image sources. So next thing you have here is the site structure. This is good to see if you have a lot of pages that are more than like 3 or 4 levels deep, then you know that you have an internal linking problem. So this is just a good visual representation of what the architecture looks like. Response times, you know, this isn't the best tool to use for this, but it'll at least give you an indication as to whether or not page speed is a problem. So you can see here the vast majority of pages it's not. It's well under 1 second. So you know, this is just a good initial check, but there's other tools that are better for page speed testing. So that's pretty much it there. Then you can use these other tabs here to go into specific areas like page titles, meta description, images, things of that nature. What I did want to show you is, so here in structured data, because we checked to check structured data, then you can see here that you get how many errors there is, how many warnings. So with structured data, if you have errors, you definitely want to address those, because if there's errors in the markup, then it gets totally ignored. If there's warnings, it's not as big of a deal. The stuff that's valid will still be, it'll still be applied to the structured data, but if there's errors, then it won't be. So just make sure that you're taking care of any of these that you see errors on. And the other thing was the custom search. So because we said we want to find all the pages that have the GTM code on it, you can see the ones that say 0 means no, 1 means yes. But these are all of the subdomains, the module subdomain, and that's why you don't see GTM. But for the Blueprint training, for the root domain, then it looks like the GTM code is on all of the pages. And then for the pages that we wanted to say or to identify as being blog posts, if I do 1, well, this has 2, but all of these, not really, this is where I go back to what I said, that this isn't 100% accurate. So I don't think this is a blog post, or it might be, but for some reason it's on here twice. No, it's under tools. But for the most part, if you take a look here, all of these are correct, are blog posts. And then these that say 0 are not. You can see that these are the training pages. So just you know, a shortcut way of being able to identify these pages from within the crawl, so that it cuts down on the amount of manual work that you would have to normally go in and tag those pages for the WQ. And lastly, this area down here, this is the URL details. So here you can select any of the URLs from up here in the table and go into more details. Here you can see things like the in links, so you can see from what page the link is coming from, the anchor text, and whether or not it's follow or no follow. This is good to, if you sort this by page, or you can even sort it by anchor text, and any of these that you see, reply, reply, reply. So if you see like the same anchor text, then you know that usually it's coming from a templated link. So somewhere in the either top level navigation or the footer or something. But when you see anchor text that is unique like this, then you know that it's usually an editorial link from within the body of the content. Outlinks, you can see where it's linking to. Image details. So yeah, like you can go really deep into specific information about a page. I normally don't look at any of this stuff. For the most part, this is really just to have a full crawl of the website in order to bring it into the website quality audit, and then just have a quick look at some of the technical issues that the site might have by using this area.